Hey, how you guys doing? Thanks for coming back for episode 5. In the last episode, yes, told you how I ended up with a dancer. We'll get to that. Some of you want to see a picture of the dancer. We'll get to that as well later in the video. But to keep things cohesive, let's, step by step, not jump ahead too fast. So I moved back up from North Vernon, Indiana to Indianapolis, stayed with my mom and dad for, I think it was maybe a couple weeks. And when I started back at the old Palmer Dodge, the old Homestead dealership, old Butch White, he'd asked me, he said, well, what have you been doing down there? I said, well, transmissions. I said, oh, well, I got a transmission guy, but you can do AC and do this or that. And I said, yeah, I can do just about whatever. So that's what I started doing, just whatever. Started working on, I think it was the first day or two I was there, they had an evaporator for a LH body, which is like a Dodge Intrepid, Chrysler, New Yorker 300, that sort of body style. And when they were brand new, the evaporator cores would leak. So they gave me one, and it was under warranty. It's just about 2 hours I had that thing done. It might have only been my first or second one I ever did. And boy, my old buddy Hubert, he was still there working. Mad. Hubert was mad. I'm like, what's wrong with you, man? He said, don't you be doing those that fast. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, well, I get paid extra to do them. So he would get paid his 6 or 7 hours to do the 2-hour job that would only pay 2 hours. So he kind of had him snowed, kind of had him buffaloed. And I said, yeah, no problem. So, it was something like that. Anyhow, and it didn't take long. They had a transmission guy. He was a nice guy. He did a lot of this, not so much this. So we'd get behind, and Butch would say, hey, you mind helping out on some transmissions and trying to get things caught up? Sure. I'd knock them out, no problem, gone. I do them in the Dodge Dakotas and the Durangos, and they were tough. The 4-wheel drives, the bell housing was right up against and in front of the firewall, so you couldn't get to the bolts. So people would take hammers and beat the floorboards up so you get to the bolts, or lay across the engine to get the bolts out, and the whole thing was a nightmare. Well, I learned real quick. I thought, well, that body comes loose, so I'd take all the body mounts loose except for the back two, jack up right at the A pillar, put a couple of pieces of 2x4s in between the body and the body mount, so it was only up that high, and you could get to everything. Slam bam, in and out the door, right? So, hey, do you want to do all the transmissions? Okay. So there I went. Now I was back to doing, and before I quit working in Chrysler a year or so before that, that's what I was doing. And so I just got to ram jamming transmissions. And it didn't take but a couple weeks, obviously, at Mom and Dad's house. That wasn't going to last very long, and it wasn't supposed to. I loved them to death, and I'd rather kept us had a good relationship, and Mom and Dad could see the boys when they were just little like that, see them a little more often when I had them. I had to fight a little bit once in a while to get them, but got myself in a little 2-bedroom apartment. It had a little pond. I could walk down the stairs and there was a pond. Well, I could have me a cold drink and put a hot dog on a spinning reel and sit there and catch channel cat like that, one after another. Had a blast. And that's where I should have kept it. That was probably the best time for a long time in my life. Nope. No. Had to go get the dancer, move her in with me from central Pennsylvania. It wasn't a good deal. How we got together, I don't even want to talk about, because I was wrong, she was wrong, it was just all wrong. But I believe things happen for a reason. And there were a few good things that came out of it. So she wanted to find a place to work. Okay. We were driving by Bud's Tavern. I said, yeah, you don't want to work in there. She's like, oh, no, we're going in there. Oh, gosh. Bud's was a friendly bar. They had dancers, you know, the butt and booby thing, you know. I was quite familiar with Bud's up to this point. When I think I had my learner's permit. The cops had called my mom. Sorry, Mom. It was just a quick little story. Cops called my mom that my dad needed a ride home. It was one of his hangouts. He couldn't get the key in the door to unlock the old Chevy Suburban. So I couldn't tell you what time it was, but I think Mom got me out of bed, and I just had my learner's permit. So she took me up there, had Dad in the passenger seat of the Suburban, and I drove the Suburban home. She's like, just follow me home. Okay. And Dad's passed out in the passenger seat. Anyhow, after that point, years before I'd left town the first time, working for Palmer Dodge, old Doug Revham, bless his soul. He and I got to be pretty good buddies, but he'd be like, come on, we get done with working, and he was kind of my boss for a while. Let's go get the coldest strohs in town down at Bud's. Well, I was on my way home because I'd lived kind of down there, and so we'd stop, drink a couple cold ones, and go home. You know, it was a place to hang out, I suppose. Anyhow, so she wanted to work at Bud's, and I've got a couple pictures here of Bud's after it was a sports bar, and here's one of after they sold it to actually a buddy of mine, old Cliff, and there's Cliff in his old car. And Cliff was a good dude. He had a little business where he worked on cars. We bought a little bar, called it the Fat Cat Bar. Then he bought Bud's building and, you know, all this stuff. So that's Bud. Or not Bud, but Cliff, you know. And Bud's actually had started out as a grocery store back in the day. They're in a little neighborhood, and they turned it into a bar and dance bar. So as far as all that, we'll stay out of the personal stuff. It just wasn't pretty. And I spent a lot of time at home at nights because she was working. Learned how to start playing guitar, writing songs. It was the start of my musical career because of that, I think. Well, one day I was at Palmer Dodge, and I'm getting ready to go to lunch, I believe, and I see a screaming Harley Davidson. Had the straight pipes on it. And I'm like, was that Alvin Jones? You remember my buddy Alvin from back a few episodes? I got some critter living up there. I need a new shop. So I'm getting ready to pull out anyway, so I followed that motorcycle right up to the Firestone. It wasn't, eighth of a mile from the dealership I was working at Palmer Dodge. Pulled right in. I saw him walking in, so I walked right in there too. Sure enough, my old buddy Alvin, the same guy that picked me up that first day to go out of town a little bit to go to school every day in his gray Monte Carlos all primered up, and that was my good old buddy Alvin. I ain't seen him in years. I hadn't talked to him or anything like that. So turns out he lived a few doorsteps away from Bud's. So in the evenings, I'd take her to work, and I'd go to Bud's or to Alvin and his wife Shannon, hang out. We ended up getting a little boat together, or something his dad owned or his uncle or something like that. We fixed it up and polished it up, and we had one summer we had a great time. We'd go camping when I didn't have my kids on every other weekend. And of course the dancer didn't want to go because she was going to work. Yeah, sure. Anyhow, we had a blast. We had a great time. Right at the end of the year, blew the rear end out of it, and some bearing, and we were done. You know, we didn't have a lot of money in, but we had a good time. And through all this, finally, I started singing karaoke on Sundays. They didn't have dancers, but at Bud's had karaoke, so I'd go sing karaoke. And it's kind of where all that started is there's a couple old gals, they'd be like, Mike, do this George Jones song, do this, that song. And every Sunday they'd be like, oh, they'd put in their request. And I thought, boy, it'd be cool if I could play guitar and just sing those songs without the karaoke machine. And that's where it all started. Muggsy, the guy who ran the karaoke machine, I got to be buddies with him. He played music. So we get together once in a while and play. Well, I'd written 5 or 6 songs by then, and there was a Colgate country music contest. It's kind of sort of like a battle of the bands, but it was on the local highfalutin country channel. Well, they picked me out of like 6 people out of 3,000. They said, yeah, you can play the show. So we went to the 8 Second Saloon, I think, used to be called A Little Bit of Texas. They're on Lyndhurst and Rockville Road. And it was a nightmare. My old buddy Mike Thacker played bass. He didn't know how to play bass. Well, neither of us really knew how to play anything, but we played our songs and didn't win. It's cool, but it was fun. I was bit by then. And then I'd started going to open stages and all this stuff. All the while I'm beating myself up doing transmissions. You know, it wasn't cool to be the kid that knew everything about anti-lock brakes and suspensions and alignments and all that. Transmissions. Whew. So, didn't take long. Things between me and the dancer didn't work out. Imagine that. And for probably, we were together for 3 years in that apartment. The last year was nothing but, I'm moving out. Okay, move. When are you moving? It's cool. Go. It's all right. Just, you need help? Well, never would go anywhere. Till I met some other girl, and she found out I was talking to some other girl, and well, that did it. And of course, I jumped from the frying pan right into the fire, you know, and started seeing this other girl. Well, my lease was up on that apartment, so I moved out. She wanted me to move in with her. Of course she did, because I made good money. I was generous. I took care of people. Transmissions. I do extra transmissions. I go and do them out in parking lots. Take transmission out in a gravel parking lot, take it to work and build it after hours. After hours, go back and put it in to make extra money. Not for me. You guys seeing a pattern here? Well, a couple, 3 years down the road, off and on, get together, back together, and not, you know, and then moved in. I had a trailer for a little while, wanted to move in the trailer with her and her kids, okay. And then throw me out of my own dang trailer. Threw me out of my own dang trailer. So we kind of got back together, but we didn't live together in my trailer. I helped her buy a house. I helped a lot. That was all good until she had the house bought. You know, it just, I was dumb, stupid. And I'd been better off all by myself. I'd have sat around, had to work and sat around and played music and probably had a grand time. Looking for love in all the wrong places, right? So anyhow, we're gonna call that an episode. Again, working my butt off on these transmissions, and it got to where I had a new service manager, actually, Randy. And I told Randy one week, I said, this week I'm gonna make 100 hours. He's like, no, you're not. I said, yeah, I will. I said, if I make 100 hours, you're buying me a steak dinner wherever I want. He said, you're on. Yep. I made 102 hours in 1 week. And none of it came back. I was very good at that. Not coming back. No comebacks. You know, comes back in on the hook. That very rarely happened to me. But I was a hard worker. I was fast. Hard worker. Not so much anymore because, you know, I started getting back pains, and we'll get into that later. Right? But, you know, the moment you're always waiting for, it's coming up. Stick around. Remember, if any of this was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? We'll see you on the next one. Stick around for the picture of the dancer. We'll see you guys on the next one.